Happy evening, all from Chennai. On behalf of CCG, I would like to welcome all of you for the 11th session of HR 2020 webinar series. EVP concept, as we know it today, was formed from the marketing idea known as unique value proposition. It's extremely important for organizations to make employees more productive and engaged at work, which in turn proves retention, performance, and overall company financial returns. Organizations with an active employee experience program are in a better position for growth and evolution. Before we start off, I would like to welcome our speaker, Ms. Arni Srinivasan. Our very own HR guru is right away here to address about the topic EVP reviving the lost paradise in our own style. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Gayatri. And for any of you who is attending this for the first time, let me tell you that this 2020 series is a very unique concept. It was started, the webinar series was started much before the world went online webinars. So I think CCG Group has been a pioneer in doing this because we started this series as a concept in January. The first episode was in January. So we figured out that we're going to do 12 episodes and we called it 2020. And that's why the timing is also at 2020 hours, 20th of the month. So it's a 12 episode series and today we're on the 11th one. What's unique about this, apart from it being a pioneer webinar initiative, the second thing which is unique is this is not a monologue. So I will not be speaking for the entire hour or so. It's very easy to speak a rehearsed text for 1 hour and then leave it open for a couple of questions and maybe address some of them and may not address. So the whole idea is we want every one of you to find that you have invested your every minute in this because we are actually snatching away into your family time. So the way this format is I will be speaking around the topic for about 20 minutes and 20 minutes or more is actually open for discussions, deliberations, questions, your own observations on the topic, so on and so forth. So as I speak, keep questions ready, keep your thoughts ready. And please understand no question is a silly question. No question is a trivial question. And anything that you would like to share out of your experience would be of value to everyone, including me, because everyone's experience has been unique. So there is no such thing that if you're going to share something, whether it will be of value for me or not, everything that people share here would be of value to me as well. So as I speak, keep ideas coming in, and after the 20 minutes, when we open it up for a discussion, I would be extremely happy if everyone has something to share. We do not have a very big group today, so I would love to hear everyone's voice because we have just one more episode in this series. And after that, I don't know if I will be seeing you all. So let's make the most of November and December 2020. Okay. So straight on to the topic, EVP, the lost paradise or reviving the lost paradise. So to my mind, EVP has two definitions. I would put it in two ways. Employee value proposition, as we all know, and there's also employer value proposition, which in other words is called employer branding or branding to be an employer of choice. So when we navigate through the lost paradise of the employee value proposition, EVP, we'll also see how it dovetails into the employer value proposition or an employer brand, right? And we'll figure out what is it that we can do as HR professionals to revive the lost paradise. So why did we actually come up with the title, The Lost Paradise, is something that I first want to touch upon. So my character of the story, Anamika, during the lockdown, she had been to her hometown, her native place, and she was spending time with her grandparents, and she got stranded there in her hometown. And one evening, she was sitting with her grandfather over tea, and she was discussing his life and times, what it was when he was in employment. And Anamika was apparently very frustrated with what was happening at the workplace, and she was grumbling about how dissatisfied she was with her current employer and how desperately she's looking out for another job. So her grandfather was quite perplexed and he said, "You have spent just 2 years in this organization. Overall, you have about 5 years of experience, out of which 1 year went as a trainee, 2 years in one organization, and now 2 years in the second organization, and you're already wanting to change your job. It was never so in my times. I did 35 years, 37 years in the same organization, whereas you guys are getting frustrated in 2 years. There's something severely wrong." That is where they were discussing what was different in those times and what is different now. And over a period of that conversation, Anamika realized that there was a paradise, and now that's what is the lost paradise. Her grandfather's organization actually had articulated an employee value proposition very beautifully. And probably that was when employee value proposition was looked at very seriously by organizations so that people stay back with them. Now let's take a look at how an employee value proposition could have been in that paradise. Okay, so now Anamika's grandfather is actually reminiscing and he's looking back on those days when he was in employment and how he grew in that organization. Along with that organization was very small when he joined as an apprentice, and then he retired as a general manager of a business unit. And when he grew, how did the EVP in that organization also change? That's the story that he tells his granddaughter, Anamika. So, grandfather says that when I joined the organization as an apprentice, it was a very small organization, and all that the owner wanted to do is he wanted to become competitive in the market. So, the employee value proposition that was made, it had everything that had to do to keep the business competitive. In the sense, the business needed to survive so that it is able to sustain its existence in the ecosystem. So what did they actually they do? So when it came to an employee value proposition, what it really means is not what the employee wants, okay, not what the employer wants from the employee. An employee value proposition is actually an intersection of what your employee wants from the organization and what the employer wants from the employee. So if you were to draw a Venn diagram, the intersection of the need or the expectation from the employee and the need or expectation from the employer, the intersection of these two things is where the employee value proposition sits. Now, when grandfather's organization was at a stage of being competitive, it is still not an evolved organization in those times. Okay, it was an organization which was at a competitive stage. So when the organization needs to be competitive in the business and survive there and be able to do a reasonable amount of business, all that they had to focus on was ensure that we get the right talent on board, ensure that we're able to pay them well, and ensure that they remain with us. So in order to be competitive in the business, they focused a lot on compensation and benefits practices. They worked on making their salary structure very competitive. They looked at what is it that an employee would expect in terms of allowances. How do you make your salary structure very tax friendly when it comes to the employee? Now these were expectations that they gathered from employees, that is what they want from the organization. And what the organization wanted from the employee at that stage of their evolution is that we want you guys to be happy here. We will pay you the kind of salary that you would expect. You deliver the kind of work that we would expect. That's the kind of expectations both the parties had. So the first few years, when the organization was at a stage of being competitive, the employee value proposition was focused a lot on compensation and benefits practices. Now the organization evolved. So grandfather, who joined as an apprentice, he worked in that organization. He became a trainee engineer, then he became a junior engineer, then he became an engineer, he became a kind of a team leader. So he grew, as he grew in the organization, his salary also grew along with him in a way that he did not want to look out for a job. His entire focus was, this is an organization which is giving me enough for me to run my family, set up my own household. Probably at that time, grandfather was looking at setting up his own family, I mean, starting his own family, getting married, so on and so forth. And he was looking at the organization that is taking care of these needs of his. And the organization was also ensuring that their employees are happy. So they remained competitive. The employees did not leave them. After about a few years, let's say after about 10 to 12 years, this organization became a very well-known organization. Now, once they were well-known, they noticed that other organizations are very, very keen on taking away their people. Okay. So when your organization is doing well, people are happy in your organization because you have a fantastic employee value proposition. You're actually exposing your happiness to the world, and other organizations wish to take away your people. So now the organization from a competitive stage is moving to a stage where it needs to be differentiated, right? So stage 2 in the evolution of an organization is that of being differentiated. Now, how does an organization at this stage look at its employee value proposition? So an employee value proposition created once is not something which is cast in stone and stays like that forever. So what does this organization have to do in a differentiated stage? So here grandfather said, okay, so we all had awesome salaries, handsome salaries. We were happy with the way we were being paid. We were happy with our incentive plans. We were happy with all of that. But what we wanted now is a lot of other perquisites. So there came the annual health checkup. We started getting a hospitalization allowance. We started getting, you can take your entire family for a medical health checkup. The organization started showing that we care. The senior people started getting club memberships. People were given allowances for recreation. Telephone allowance started coming into the salary structure. So organizations started becoming very creative when it came to giving people different kind of allowances and different kinds of initiatives in order to ensure that everyone feels that they are cared for. So first you've taken care of their needs by way of paying them salary properly, scientifically. And then when you want to become a differentiated organization, you're trying to come up with all those creative ideas to show that you are different. Can everyone go on mute, please? I'm hearing some background noise. Kevin, can you go on? Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. Nandini, yes, thank you. So at the differentiated stage, they started getting in all these additional perquisites. So grandfather grew, he grew to middle management, and he was still in the same organization because as the organization was evolving from a competitive stage to a differentiated stage, he noticed that the organization is not just doing what it was doing in the past when it came to what it is giving its employees. So if you go back to the Venn diagram of what is an EVP, what is it that an employee expects from an organization? And what is it that an organization expects from an employee? The intersection of that, which is the EVP, that is something which the organization kept on periodically relooking, revalidating, and redesigning. Now, grandfather grew very well because it was a fantastic organization. They encouraged his growth, they helped his development. He became general manager of a business unit. He became an assistant general manager. He retired as general manager. So when he became an assistant general manager, he started understanding that now this organization has also grown so much. It is a much sought after organization. And now we need to do something which makes us unique. So the third stage or the ultimate stage for an organization to evolve and grow is when it wants to become unique. So competitive, differentiated, and unique. Now, when an organization is wanting to be unique in its own space, its employee value proposition needs to once again be relooked and redesigned. So now what happens? When you have all these employees with you who have been with the organization as it grew, like grandfather for 35 years, and so many others who have been there for 20 years. So their average tenure was around 20 years. So people have been there, grown in that organization. Now, what is it that keeps them there? Is it salary alone? Is it the health benefits that they are getting? There's something beyond all of that. Why they are there in that organization for so many years is they're all bound by a purpose. They're all bound by the purpose that why this organization is existing and how am I part of that larger purpose. So at that stage of maturity of the organization, the EVP is typically purpose driven, right? So this is how the EVP needs to be constantly relooked, revisited, and redefined or redesigned as the organization is in different stages. There's just one disclaimer I want to give here. It is not necessary that every organization has to start with a competitive stage. Okay. So if I'm looking at a very generic kind of a business, and if you want to start an entrepreneurial venture, and your business model and your business idea is very similar to others who are already other players who are already there, you will probably start with a competitive stage. You want to establish your business, so you're competitive. Then once you have been competitive, you'd want to do something different. So go into a differentiated stage and then go into the unique stage to be the employer of choice. But if you're a startup, now what's a startup? A startup is not an entrepreneurial venture. The real definition of a startup is an organization which comes up with products or services which are unique and novel, something which has never been done before. So if you look at a lot of startups, they were all these ideas which was never looked at before. You pick up any of these Ubers and the Olas and the Byju's and your these holiday vacation homes, homestays, etc. Now these are all ideas which never existed. So when they started, that is the one which is called as a startup. Now when a startup comes into practice, it's not a business which is entering into the competitive phase or a differentiated phase, because there is nothing to compete against. There is nothing to show your differentiation against. A startup typically starts with the unique stage because it is novel and unique. And why is a startup starting at that stage in an EVP is it typically startups they begin with a purpose. A couple of the founders, they get together with an idea, with a purpose to give back something to the society, and they create the startup. So startups typically start at the unique stage. So when they are at that stage, you will notice that they are very strongly purpose driven, that this is what we want to, this is what we wish to give back to the society by way of our products and services. So you will find that their employee value proposition is all about driving the purpose. You will also notice that many a times the startups may not be the best paymasters. Some of my friends who were applying for jobs, they were approached by startup owners and they said, we are a startup. This is our idea. This is what we want to do. If you're aligned with our purpose, join us. But we are not going to be able to pay you even your last drawn salary. And there are people who have joined those organizations because they notice that the employee value proposition there is actually the purpose itself, right? So if your organization is at that stage, your employee value proposition should be purpose. Now, if your organization is at a stage where there are players in the business, but you're doing something slightly unique and you are wanting to be differentiated and take off from there, then your employee value proposition should be appropriate to the differentiation stage. Now, if you're starting a business which has multiple competitors around, then your employee value proposition should be what is required as in a competitive stage. Okay, so employee value proposition is something which depends on which stage in the pyramid of evolution your organization is, and it needs to be defined accordingly. So Anamika was very thrilled with the way her father's corporate journey has evolved and how her father evolved with the organization. And then she reflects on what is happening at her organization and why the frustration. And she figures out that it is the employee value proposition which is actually the culprit. And she actually says that in my organization, I know that what we are offering as a service to our customers, to the society, is something which is at a stage of differentiation. We are not at a competitive or at a unique stage. So for us, if you keep on hiking the salaries, it is still frustrating me, because what I want to do is I want to be aligned with what is it that we are offering differentiated to our people. Give me more challenging projects. Just giving me a market kind of an increase and then expecting me to deliver on something which is mundane is not aligning me with what I'm expecting from this organization. So there's a huge mismatch between what the talent expects from the employer and what the employer expects from the talent. So in organizations like that of Anamika's, actually it's a lost paradise. So if we as HR professionals have to revive this lost paradise. Now, our role is that we will not complain that it's a lost paradise, right? We will always sign off on a positive note, and we will say that we are going to do these things in our organization going back, and we are going to try and see if that lost paradise can be revived. Yeah, an argument can be that I'm not the one who is going to be writing the employee value proposition for my organization. I'm a very junior HR resource. Never mind. You may not write it and paste it on the wall, but you can always work on an employee value proposition, assuming that you own the business, and your employee value proposition is something that should be able to give you those results. Once your story becomes a success story, you can always put it up on the wall, right? So what you can do, one is understand which stage of evolution your business is, whether it is a competitive stage, whether it is at a differentiated stage, and whether it is at a unique stage. Depending on which stage it is in, align the objectives that the organization wishes to achieve and the objectives that your employee value proposition is going to offer to its people. Ensure that there is an alignment of all of this. Look at what are the expectations of employees from your organization, and you will find that out when you do your employee engagement surveys, when you have your interactions with them informally, formally. You will understand what is it that they expect from the organization. So make a list of all those and see how you can align with what is the organization expecting from them. And the third thing is, how do you build your employer value proposition or your employer branding or become a brand employer of choices? How is it that you're positioning your organization to the outside world? In the employee value proposition, you're positioning your organization in a particular way internally to your own people. But when you're doing your employer value proposition, you're positioning yourself to the outside world or doing an employer branding. When you do an employer branding, what you have to keep in mind is what is it that you're providing to the society? What difference you're making to the society? How is it that people are going to be impacted externally? And how is it that you're taking care of your people internally? Now, these are the aspects which need to be articulated when you're doing your employer value proposition. Now, let's take a look at some advertisements which went viral recently, and they have been very highly spoken about. Okay, one of it is the Cadbury's ad. Okay, we all saw that ad where it actually went viral within minutes. I got it on all my social media groups, that particular ad. It was about how Cadbury's was not selling their product in that ad, but they were actually indicating which are the other shops, the smaller retailers in your pin code area, right? So they are showing to the society that here is an organization which cares for others, even if they are not related to our business. So Cadbury's is projecting itself as an organization which has a very strong purpose and strong values. And that becomes their employer brand, and they could become an employer of choice because that demonstrates their value system. Similarly, there was another ad from Burger King. And Burger King said, kept on saying in that ad that please go and place your order with McDonald's. Okay, now they are competitors, they're arch rivals, but they still did that in that because they wanted to show that they care for others even if they are competition, because McDonald's was running out of business. So these are ways in which organizations can project their employer brand to the outside world so that they become an employer of choice. But it's not good enough if you become an employer of choice, that is only your external image being very good is not good enough. you also need to equally take care of your people internally, and therefore the employee value proposition or the EVP has to be like a paradise. People should be able to enjoy working in the organization as if they are living in paradise, which is stress free, coming and doing your work, as out of sheer joy and satisfaction, and going back home as a satisfied individual without any worries about how you're going to live the next day. That's what typically happens in paradise. And the lost paradise is something that we need to revive by looking at what is it that the employee is expecting from the organization and what is it that the organization is expecting from the employee, and look at what is in the intersection and define the EVP from there. So with that, my 20 minutes is over, and now we're open for questions, comments, thoughts. I can see Arun Prasad, so I definitely want to hear Arun.
Nice, madam. Nice, excellent. Actually, it was excellent program. Actually, nice insights. Today's actually world. Actually, after the pandemic, actually, we are going on a reverse track.
Mm.
We are going back to the competitive stage,
Mm.
differentiation stage. Organizations are moving competitive stage where this company is paying this much only. Why we have to pay this much? Negative. What is your
Excellent viewpoint. Excellent viewpoint. That's precisely why I called out to you, Arun, because you bring in some very, very valuable point, and you take me off in another direction to give another thought. Now, I'll tell you, your observation is right. Organizations, if they reach the purpose stage, they need not stay there. You're right. They can come back to the competitive stage. And I'll tell you how. I was giving this analogy in another campus when I did a talk there, but definitely it is relevant here, so I'll tell you. So what has been happening is the whole world is like a sand clock. Okay, sand flows from the top cup to the bottom cup. Okay, over a period of time. So organizations were evolving, change was happening, but we are all particles of sand, so we didn't realize what change is happening. Suddenly, the pandemic came and turned the sand clock upside down. Okay, so now what's happening is that became a big jolt to us, and we are still struggling to find our ground. So organizations which had reached the bottom cup, okay, by way of flowing down the sand clock, they find themselves back in the competitive business because everything around them has changed. Earlier, they had evolved to a differentiated stage because they were very clear about we will hire from these locations, we will provide a bus service, we will provide a cafeteria service, we'll provide so many other facilities, and they were very happy that they were able to retain their employees. Now, geography is history. Geography does not exist anymore. So so employees are actually thinking that why should I work for this organization, because this organization being in my city is now immaterial. So if there's another organization which is in the other part of the world, and if they are willing to let me work from home, I'll work from the comfort of my home. So what an employee is expecting from the employer is now changed drastically. What an employer is expecting from the employee has to catch up with that change. And that is where we are finding that we have gone back to being competitive. Now, organizations which were already working like that flexibly, now they are not in a competitive stage, they are in a differentiated stage because they know that they and the others have already been working from home. Now, what they have to do differently to work from home so that they're able to keep their people. So their EVP has to look at it in a very different manner than organizations which are doing work from home for the first time. Now, all of this will keep happening till the sand clock again becomes empty, the top cup. Again, something else will come and turn the sand clock again. And once again, we will see that we need to redefine and relook and redesign our employee value proposition. And therefore, the employee value proposition is not something which is cast in stone or done once and for all. Otherwise, it will become a lost paradise. So one has to keep on looking at it and redefining it. Else, it remains a lost paradise. I hope I've answered your question. Uma, you've raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Superb.
Yeah, I have a question, Ms. Harini, and it was a wonderful session listening to you.
Thank you
It
so
was
much.
a great insight. It was a great insight, and I have a doubt on this. Like, you have said that intersection of employee expectation and employer expectation is what is to be addressed now. Can you
Yes.
just say some examples which falls under this intersection part?
Yeah, so let me continue from where I left when I was answering Arun's question. Employee expect. Let's take an IT company as one example, where they have already been having some flexible working, some people working from home, some people working hybrid, partially from home, partially from office, and so on and so forth. There were some projects in that company which were insisting that people should come to the office because they had very strict access controls. Okay, some of these oil and gas companies, when they engage IT organizations for their developing codes for them, they have very strict access controls because they're very strongly intellectually driven organizations. So we used to insist that people have to come to the office. Now pandemic came and these people had to work from home. So the access controls had to be changed. You cannot have those entry-exit controls in the office because people are working from home. Now, when the unlock is happening, these employees have already tried working from home and it has worked. So the expectation from employees here is that all these 7-8 months we work from home and it worked very well. So if you don't allow me to continue working from home, I'm quitting because another organization is going to allow me to work from home. So even if the company insisted that people have to come to office, now they have to understand that the employee expectation is to be able to work flexibly from anywhere. Right? Now, an employer's expectation from an employee is that while you're working flexibly, we are not going to compromise on the deliverables that you give to us. So our expectation is that whether you work from home or whether you work from the office, you have to be able to deliver on time. There can be no compromise on that. And we'll have to do it in a way that we are not able to monitor you physically. So the expectation of an employer is that employee has to work extremely well without physical monitoring. And the expectation of an employee is that allow me to continue to work from anywhere. So the intersection of this is probably your remote working conditions and a policy associated with that. Now your EVP here will not be higher salary or compensation or benefits or a club membership. Your EVP here is a robust remote working policy where people are treated the way they expect to be treated and managers are able to monitor and measure their productivity and keep the business growing. Okay, so this is one example. Have I answered your question, Uma?
Yeah, I have one more doubt. Like, EVP is well connected with work-life balance, employee retention, talent management, or compensation and benefit, which will come in the first order.
All of this. So when you're at a stage where you have to remain in the ecosystem, in the business, then you're competitive. So for being competitive, typically the very basic things like salary, benefits, those things will come. When it comes to a stage where you want to be differentiated from others, that is where things like your health. So I don't normally say work-life balance because for me, work is a part of life. And life is full of work. So I don't really say work-life balance. What I would say is taking care of health, health, safety, etc. That would come at a differentiated stage. So if you're an organization where you're already competitive in the business, you would look at building health and safety of your employees into your employee value proposition. Because employees will say, we are very happy with what you're paying us, but we are a little unhappy because we do not have very ergonomic chairs in the office, or I'm struggling with my commute. All those things will come as their expectations. So when those expectations come around these factors, that becomes, that has to be built into, that is how you provide the value to them through their proposition. So it depends on which stage the organization is. Your employee value proposition can have different elements.
Yeah, fine. Thanks a lot for answering the
You're
queries.
welcome.
Thank you.
Kevin has been raising hand for a long time. Kevin, do you want to ask a question?
Oh, hello,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah, can others go on mute, please? Kevin, you go ahead. Yes, Kevin. Can't hear you.
Yeah.
Kevin, your voice is very choppy.
How to hold employees for the long term in the organization?
Kevin,
No?
yeah, just repeat. I think it's better now. Just repeat.
Yeah. So how to hold an employee for the long term in organization? So that is the main thing, mutual benefit for our organization as well as the employee for their development.
Yes.
So how to hold an employee for the long term in our organization? I hope it is the main thing.
Yes.
For the employee as well as the employer.
Correct. So an employer expects that its employees don't leave. That is an expectation of an employer typically, because hiring people, rehiring, all this happens at a cost. So an employer would always wish that their employees stay with them for a long time. Employees may not have that wish necessarily. Okay, employees will have different aspirations. Okay, an employee, when he joins the organization, might say, yes, I will continue in this organization for a long time, provided my aspirations are taken care of. Right? So when an organization is not able to acknowledge or understand or look at that intersection space of what it expects from its employees and what an employee is expecting from the organization, when the organization is not able to look at it, that is when attrition happens. Now, there could be various aspects to it. I will not say that every employee needs to be retained forever. Okay, some employees, it is good at some point if they leave, even if they are good performers, if they have reached a saturation point that they cannot grow beyond that. Okay, there's no point in paying them more and more for them to do the same job, right? So at that stage, if they leave, it doesn't matter. But whoever has potential to stay, those are the people the organization should look at retaining, not necessarily everybody. Even Google, which is a great employer of choice, also has attrition. Sometimes it is good to let go of people at certain time. So when an organization is able to see what is it that the employee that they wish to retain is actually expecting, and if they're able to build that into the employee value proposition, the person will stay for a long time. That is what happened in Anamika's grandfather's case. Now, it is one argument that we might say in those days people did not leave organizations. But I'm just saying, take a step back. Why did people not leave organizations in those days? Because everybody wanted to have some kind of a job security, because jobs were not many and people were not being, they did not have the luxury of sitting jobless for a couple of months and searching for jobs. Now, today, people's spendability, affordability has become so high that just by giving them a job, a permanent job on an employment letter does not hold them. There are other things which you need to look at as to what is it will hold them. So there could be other benefits, there could be career path, there could be overseas deputation, whatever are the expectations. Or it could be simply someone wants to, here is my organization which is looking at what my aspirations are. And those are the people who will stay. I think we lost Kevin, but I have answered the question. Uma is asking for my email ID. Yeah, I'll just type my email ID. You can take it. Anyone else has a question in the meantime? Anyone else has a question? Yug. That is Rajiv.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Rajiv.
Good evening, you, and good evening to all.
Yes,
It
Rajiv.
was, as usual, a wonderful session. It's not a question, rather, I would like to understand from you as well as all the participants, how are we, let's say, going to have proper EVP for gig economy also? Because that thing, according to me, is coming in a big way. not because of COVID, but also because of the changing overall industry scenario, employer-employee relationship and everything.
Correct. Gig economy has been expected to grow, become predominant, and COVID has probably only accelerated it. And probably, roles which people thought cannot be gig roles, those have also become gig roles. For example, recently I'm hearing of a role called as CHRO on demand. Okay, so people as CHROs of fairly large organizations who are very expensive resources, they have quit their employers, or they have been asked to go in tough times because they were actually very expensive resources for the organization, right? So when all was well, the organization could sustain them. But then when things are not well, they were asked to go. Now, what do these people do? Now, they came up and said that, okay, we will take up gig working. Smaller organizations, startups, etc., who need CHRO and cannot afford a typical CHRO, we will work as CHROs and play that role in 3-4 organizations at the same time. So you become a CHRO on demand. Now, this is gig working. So gig working has moved away from being only for freelancers right to the extent of having gig CXOs. Okay, so that is how gig working has emerged, much bigger than what was expected during the COVID period. Now, to answer your question on EVP for gig workers, definitely organizations should think about EVP for gig workers, although technically organizations cannot be called employers for gig workers, and gig workers cannot be called employees. But whatever it is, for a practical purpose, let's assume that we have these gig workers who are delivering service to us, and we wish to go back and keep giving them more and more work so that we continue to get their services. So what is the expectation of the gig worker from the organization? That has to be very clearly captured as you speak with them. So some gig workers might say that I would love if you keep giving me this kind of work for about every 3 months and then a gap of 2 months because I'm planning to do certain, pursue my education or whatever. And that's an expectation of that gig worker. The organization should be able to facilitate that, should have that flexibility. That role you should be able to build in that flexibility. Now, if the gig worker says that I will come to the office and work only 3 days a week or 2 days a week, but extended hours. And even if you're expecting a certain delivery on Friday, I would finish it on Wednesday, hand it over and go. The organization should be ready to accept that. If the organization remains rigid on its expectations, then there would be a mismatch. So the EVP for a gig worker has to be looked at by organizations, and that will happen only when you understand what is the expectation of the gig worker from that organization. Who else has raised hand?
That's a perfect answer. Love to.
Yeah, Kevin, I hope he doesn't. You have any other question? Or your hand is still up? Okay. Do we have anyone else who has a question? No? Okay. Any more questions?
Hi, ma'am. Prakash here.
Yes, Prakash.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm fine, ma'am.
Good evening. Good to hear you.
Yeah, ma'am. So here, I just want to understand how challenging will be the EVP for a company who's already been working from home option, and the company is right away taking up. And how the challenges? Is it a challenge for the company, or it's an opportunity for the company?
Good question. EVP is a challenge in the sense, as long as you're not able to have your employees articulate what is their expectation, the EVP would be a challenge, because EVP is something which cannot be thought of by the employer alone. You have to apply a design thinking way of working, and you should be able to have the empathy conversations with your employees at different levels, understand what is it that they're expecting from the organization, and then design the EVP around it. To that extent, it will be a challenge. But it is definitely an opportunity, because a well-articulated EVP, when it is aligned with the expectation of the employee, it brings about better retention and definitely better productivity. Okay, so in tough times, when you have a fantastic organization with better retention and is delivering more, you are poised at growth. So it is definitely an opportunity. Now, when you're looking at your EVP plays an integral role, or it dovetails into the employer branding or the employer value proposition to the outside world. Now, when you have a fantastic EVP, it definitely is something which will accentuate your employer brand. So in terms of attracting more people from other organizations, also it's a huge positive. So to me, a properly articulated or a designed EVP is an opportunity. But the challenge is, if you apply traditional thinking and you feel that this is the EVP that I'm going to give to the people, it won't work. You have to apply design thinking, because EVP has to be designed. EVP is not something which is drafted. EVPs are always designed. So that is where the challenge is. So anyone who is a design thinker will be able to design EVPs.
Thank you, ma'am. Another one
Yeah.
question repeatedly.
Yes.
When it is coming to EVP, earlierly it was a completely the workouts. It has been done on the compensation part, like allowances, other allowances, on-site opportunity. So if some company is declaring that from here and after they're going to work from home, so how the EVP would be for a company to design it?
Yeah.
Because
So
more of that in the
yeah.
corporate.
So what is it that people expect now? When no, see, it's not as simple as our office is no longer there and we are working from home. It's a lot beyond that. Now, why? Now, let's take an example: on-site opportunities. Why is it that people wanted on-site opportunities? There could be at least two very obvious reasons. One is, I would like to get exposure to the way of working in the outside world, right? I would like to go there and experience it. Second thing is, I would like to tour outside India. Why not? Let's be frank. Now, these are two reasons why employees wanted to travel outside, on site. Okay. Now, when your organization is working from home, obviously wanting to travel on site cannot happen. That everybody understands. But when you go back and ask them, what is it that motivated you, or you expected from an on-site opportunity? When you go back and ask those questions, they will be able to articulate. So they would still come back saying, we want to have one-on-one interaction with our counterparts in the rest of the world, and that's why we wanted to go on site and work with them. So if your EVP is something which is designed in a way that an employee working here, you create a virtual office room so that he and his counterpart in the US are sitting together, logging in together, having a cup of coffee together, talking about their families, talking about what's happening in their personal lives, celebrating the birth of a newborn, so on and so forth. The employee is going to feel happy that his idea of working shoulder to shoulder with an on-site counterpart is being satisfied, even though we are working from home. So this is one example of how you can design the EVP, even if an on-site was a value proposition and now it cannot be done.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
So you need to think a little, put yourself in the shoes. Why is it that on-site opportunity was required? I saw Reese Emmanuel's hand going up. Yes.
Yes, Harmi.
Yes.
So one thing that I had, I'm sorry, yeah, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Reese Emmanuel. Go ahead.
Okay, so one thing is like, if in case, like, say the management's objective, right? So when the needs of the employer are very dynamic and keeps changing frequently. So in that case, how do we kind of sustain this EVP? Now, as you said, of course, we need to kind of revisit on a regular basis. But again, there are situations where the priorities changes, right? So how do we
So it okay. First of all, I just want to clarify. It is not the need of the organization or the employer. It is the expectation of the employer. When you say needs are something which are short term and will keep on changing periodically. Needs can change even on a daily basis. You can't keep redesigning the EVP on a daily basis. You're right. Expectation of an employer from an employee is different. Expectation is something much bigger than the need. My need might be that I want you to deliver this project on time. I want you to ensure that so much of sales you make right now. My expectation is much bigger. My expectation is that you help me or partner with me to drive the business to become the best amongst our competitors. That is my expectation from you. Okay, so see the difference between need and expectation. Expectation is much bigger. So my expectation from you will will be more or less not change too much for a period of time. That as long as you're in middle management, my expectation from you will be to drive very efficient junior workforce. Okay. When your role changes, my expectation will change along with your role. But my needs are very are something which can change even daily. So you don't have to, you cannot redesign EVPs on a daily basis, but you can only redesign them when expectations change. So when an organization grows drastically, the expectations from its people will change. When an organization is entering into new geographies, expectations will change. When an organization is suddenly having to move from office to virtual working, expectations will change. Similarly, when all these drastic changes are happening in the situations around where the organization is actually there, the expectation from the employees will also change. So every time these drastic changes are happening, there has to be the intersection between the employer expectation and the employee expectation, not on the needs.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amuda, your turn next.
Yes, Harini, it was a wonderful session. First time I'm hearing you online. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mar. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Harini, I'm not very sure how much this is related to the topic, but I have one question.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah. See, like in our company, when we go for the campus interview, like we recruit freshers. When we ask them what do you expect from a company when you want to start your career, the first thing they say is learning and growth, right? They want to work on different products. They want to work on new technologies. They want to explore everything. They want to learn. That is the first expectation, right? And our company definitely provides that chance, because we always say like it's learning by doing, because we do not give them any training periods as such. But from day one, they will be on the task. But they will get all the help. They can collaborate. They can get all the help. They have all the right approach and tools they can use for the learning, and they do grow. And after 1 year or 1.5 years, it happens like they are very much skilled enough. Then they feel like, okay, they have to go out now. And they are definitely getting attracted by other companies who are better paymasters than us. And we cannot always be this paymasters, right?
Correct,
so when you see 50% of our company workforce is less than or 3 years or 2.5 years. So how to handle this? Like we cannot stop them, and we cannot be always the best paymasters also. But what they look for is, okay, I have learned enough here. Now let me go and explore outside, and I'm also getting a better pay outside.
Your answer is actually in your question itself. Now, if you're in a kind of business where it is very easy for them to find jobs with competitors, okay, it simply means that your business is at a stage of being differentiated and not at a competitive stage. So no matter what you do with respect to the competitive EVP, which is salary benefits, no matter how much ever high salary you give, they will always negotiate something higher and move on. What you need to provide them is a differentiated environment. Okay. Now, that's a huge process. I cannot give you an answer to your problem right now, but I can only direct you towards it, because there will be a process that you have to do. Now, how is it that you can give them a differentiated environment? There are different ways. One is you can give them certain long-term benefits. Okay. So earlier ESOPs or an LTI was a very popular long-term benefit, but a lot of millennials are not particularly interested in ESOPs. So which means ESOPs is no longer a EVP for a long-term retention, for a differentiated retention. Earlier club memberships used to be a very fancy thing. Now that was used for differentiating. So even if some other company pays you higher salary, I pay you 75% of that, but I give you membership of the premium club in the city. So people used to feel attracted because you get to walk in there. So along these lines, you have to think of something which is creative, which is beyond salary, and look at what is it that differentiates your organization in terms of an environment for them than the other. Now, there could be many things. Now, if you have a population which is very keen on qualifying themselves better. For example, in a what do you say, in an industry which is driven by intellectual capability. Now they might want to do right up to PhD. Let's take the pharma industry, for example. Even if your salaries are not the highest, you're not the best paymaster, but you have tied up with a particular university to help them patent their research work, or to help them get a PhD over a period of next 5 years, then that is part of the employee value proposition. Right? So you'll have to look at what is it that can retain them. It's definitely not money, because if very easily you're losing people to other organization, it means you're not in that competitive stage. So your EVP should not be something which answers the competitiveness. It has to be something which has to be in the differentiated stage. Right. So I don't have the answer to your business right now, because I need to understand your business, but that we can always do. We are connected, so we can always do that. But that's where the problem is. If we wrongly assume that we are in the competitive stage, our business might be in the differentiation stage.
Thanks, Harini. I'll definitely connect with you.
Sure. You're welcome. If we don't have any more questions, it's 9:19 by my clock. So,
Yeah, Gayatri.
Yes, Prakash, I'm here right here.
Hello, ma'am.
yeah, Kevin?
Yeah. Sorry, there is a
Yes.
network issue continuously, I think so. So really sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
You want to say something?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
Yes, go on.
Oh, yeah. And what is the main reason employee looking for the change? I mean, they need to change the company. So what is the main reason that? So apart from salary, they do also have some expectation.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Nowadays, nowadays employees changing their companies even after 1 year. So what is the reason that?
Yeah, so it's generally all surveys say that people don't leave organizations for salary reasons. That is one of the that is normally when you change your job, you take up a job with a higher salary, but you don't leave the job for salary reasons. That's what all surveys typically say. But it's worthwhile to probe deeper, have more robust exit conversations, and find out what is the real reason. Now, you may not be able to revisit your EVP and make that particular employee retain, but if the real reason is something where there is a big mismatch, like what Amuda said, the real reason there is not, it's not salary. People are leaving because jobs are available outside. Okay, now what is it that they want in life so that they're able to stay back is what you have to find out. Now, that is where you have to apply design thinking. Design thinking in HR is a completely different subject in itself, and you build your EVP by designing it. And how do you design it is get into the employees' minds and find out what is it that they will hold them back and build that into your EVP design.
Okay.
Usually it is not salary. Usually it's not salary.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I suppose I need to add a point on this. Maybe the culture matters a lot also, right, ma'am?
Yeah, of course. So when you probe deeper into those exit conversations, you'll understand which aspect of culture, because culture is a combination of values, behaviors, etc. So values, beliefs, and behaviors. All three put together is culture. So when you are talking to people, trying to find out what they expect, it's possible that there is a mismatch in the values. It's possible that there is a mismatch in the behaviors, that they were expecting a certain behavior from the organization demonstrated certain other behavior. There might be an expectation mismatch in the beliefs. So which aspect of culture there is an expectation mismatch, that has to be actually pinpointed, and it's almost like treating a disease. You take a blood report, okay, you find out if there is an eosinophilia or whether there is a urinary tract infection. You look at the various components and then you treat for that. So that's how you look at the culture, diagnose it and treat it. And when you're treating it, obviously the EVP is where you will show the treatment. The EVP will have to be redesigned based on what is it that there is an expectation mismatch. Yeah. But good point about the culture. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we wind up for the day?
I suppose Kevin is still not convinced.
Kevin or Amuda, both hands are up, whether you still have a question or whether you still have to. No, Amuda's hand is down. Okay. Kevin's hand is also down. Okay, all right.
Yeah, maybe.
That's great.
Yeah, but we can always connect back and stay in touch, and that doesn't stop. So.
Yeah, Mamana, I am satisfied with your answer. Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay.
Gayatri, over to you.
Yes, Prakash. That was a great session this time. Like I suppose, right, Pam? With like lots of interactions this time. And
Yes.
once again, a heartfelt thanks to you for having this session with me. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
Thanks-
you so much.
thanks
Thanks,
a lot.
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you so
Everyone,
much.
look forward
Patience
to.
beyond 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look forward to seeing everybody in the finale episode in December. So see you all soon. Till then, take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Yeah. We are expecting the same in future.
All right. Bye. Bye for now. See you in December. Bye.